is every way to make a bad thing good in Minecraft. And hey, YouTube tells me that most of my subscribers subscribe to the channel on their phone. So if you're watching this on anything else, be that your TV, your tablet, your robot best friend, whatever, if you can use it to subscribe below, then do so. And let us know what you're watching on in the comments. It's free and it helps out a ton. And you know what else helps out a ton? Tank. This is War Thunder, a top military action free-to-play multiplayer game available on your PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Mac. And it features confrontations between ground vehicles, aircraft, and naval vessels. War Thunder perfectly captures the scale and sensation of fierce battles using military equipment. The list of available tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships includes all iconic machines and lesser-known prototypes from the mid-20th century right up until the present. All vehicles in the game can be upgraded and improved with additional modules. In the new Alpha Strike update, Hungarian Aviation is now available, along with a bunch of new equipment, both modern and classic. And the visual effects have been significantly improved too, as well as gameplay has been refined based on community requests. Plus, a new map for intense tank and aviation battles, North Holland, allows you to fight in the red light district or create a small apocalypse right in the shopping center. So download War Thunder for free by using the link in the description, and all new players and those who haven't played War Thunder for over a half a year or more will receive some special bonuses. Rentals for the P-40E1 aircraft and M4 tank for a week, along with free unique skins for them, a special decorator Eagle of Valor, and even more gifts. And if you see me in game, just please don't blow me up. Now, when you say it out loud, dying sounds bad. I mean, it usually is, I don't want to sugarcoat it. But within Minecraft, if you're not in a hardcore mode, it actually could be pretty useful. And that's why it's found its way into speedrunner techniques. Because by setting up a bed, setting your spawn, and then taking care of yourself, we can actually do a hunger reset and come back to life on a completely full stomach. And hey, all of a sudden, dying doesn't seem so bad, right? As long as you stashed your stuff and didn't use lava to do the trick. Now, when you pick up rotten flesh, most of us know that we shouldn't be eating it, because let's face it, it's not exactly a good food source. And while the cleric villagers are willing to buy it off your hands, I actually think there's one better use for it, which is that if you want to heal up your wolves, they don't have a hunger bar, meaning that if we right-click them with our zombie jerky, they're gonna regen just fine and not be affected by the hunger, which I'll admit seems a little gross, but I've seen dogs eat worse, so it's less weird to me than some of the stuff I've seen people eat on keto. I think it's fine. Now, setting off a skulk sensor in the deep dark is obviously something you don't want to do. That's literally why there's an achievement for sneaking around one. However, setting one off could just be what you need to save yourself from the warden. Let me explain. Since if you were to set up a simple back and forth ping system like this using trapdoors, then basically what we're doing here is that one skulk sensor goes off, triggers the other one, it triggers its trapdoor, and then begins the cycle anew. And that could be an excellent way to distract wardens. I mean, it's basically a noise machine that's moving in 8D surround sound around them. And for a blind mob, that's really all they need to keep them busy. Letting us summon the warden, but not have to worry about the consequences, both of which I like. If only I had this the last time I went and raided an ancient city, but I digress. It's never been a good idea to not sleep in Minecraft, but it became an even worse idea when phantoms were added in, since after 3 nights of insomnia, you had to deal with these big annoying pests. But while a bed seems like the easy answer for that, let's consider the upside for having phantoms around. And really it all comes down to that phantom membrane that they're dropping, since that can not only be used for potions of slow falling, but it could also allow you to repair your elytra, which with the recent experimental changes that Mojang's trying out for our villager book trades, it's a lot tougher to get mending now anyways. So if you don't already have this, keeping a few phantom membrane on hand for when you're traveling might not be a bad call. Even if you do have mending, it's a lot easier to do this in an anvil than it is to go and kill a whole bunch of mobs to get a few more minutes of flight. So are phantoms annoying? Absolutely. But are they completely useless? It's hard to say that too. Maybe more of a necessary evil, if you will. When we're enchanting our gear, we're more likely to put sharpness on our tools instead of smite. And after all, it makes sense, right? Sharpness does more damage across the board, whereas smite only does it in certain situations. However, if you're doing this and completely throwing out all your smite books, I'd ask you to reconsider. Because sure, it is useful to have sharpness 5 on top of your sword, but by having a smite 5 axe, now in your survival world you have something that's going to be a lot more powerful for when you encounter mobs. And because of the added damage of an axe already, you can kill most of these mobs in just one hit with no critical damage. And plus, if you're fighting the Wither, this makes it a lot easier too. Look, I also used to roll my eyes when I would get smite on my sword instead of sharpness, but I think the solution here is to use both in conjunction instead of either or. And that's not the only weapons that we can enchant, since there's also an argument for having your bow enchanted with infinity or with mending. And while it would seem like an infinity bow would save you more resources in the long run, eventually it'll get too expensive to repair, where then you have to go make a whole new one and it's a whole thing. So in that case, it's much easier to just get a mending bow and then come by your arrows through something like a Fletcher Villager. Because sure, arrows are expensive to craft, but they're not expensive to trade for. And while you do have to end up sacrificing a few more item slots this way, I really do think think it's worthwhile of a trade-off. Moss carpet's probably not something that gets a lot of use in your world. And after all, if I'm gonna decorate my house with carpet, I'm not exactly choosing to put moss in there. Usually that's what I want to avoid, right? And while it seemed like a terrible idea to use moss inside of the Nether, it's actually quite useful. Since over here, you can spawn-proof with moss carpet and it'll never burn up. Which seems weird because it's made out of plant material, but moss is also kind of wet anyway, so I guess it makes sense. Look, I'm not one to go into logistics of it. We have plenty of videos going into Minecraft not making sense. This doesn't have to be another one of those. And if it means that we're able to turn this useless item into a useful one, I'm all for it. Unless you're a poet, you're probably not using a book and quill too much in your world. I mean, for one, it means you have to go kill a squid, which isn't exactly fun anyway. But then, once you craft this up, what are you really gonna put inside of it? It's really only useful on multiplayer where you could write a message for someone else, because if you're on single player, I don't really want to read what else I'm writing, but that's why using this as just an active book and quill instead of signing it is actually useful. Since here, you're able to make a to-do list of objectives for your world. And so if you ever stepped away from your world and forgot what you were doing, you can just open this up and see exactly what you were up to before. It's kind of like how old Pokemon games used to tell you what you were up to right before you last hit save. And for someone who forgets a lot like me, I'm happy to have it. Saddling up a pig and taking it for a ride seems fun, but it's rarely ever useful. I mean, even with the carrot on the stick, it's not that easy to control, and it's definitely not fast. But if we take multiple of those carrots on a stick and then ride the pig off of a cliff, then we can scroll between all of our items, an empty hand and a carrot on a stick, and essentially slow down our fall with the pig. Yeah, every time that you bring it out, Minecraft resets your fall distance, making it so we'll end up at the bottom just fine as long as we dismount the pig first. Now the pig, not so much, but hey, being useful means that it finally found its purpose. It's just unfortunate to find it at the very end. But hey, that's better than a lot of people can say. And now you got some pork chops too. Making a floor for yourself out of honey blocks is generally a terrible idea. I mean, they're as slow as slime to walk around on, and you can't easily jump off of them unlike the slime blocks. But with that disadvantage is actually where they have their greatest advantage. See, these are great for trapping mobs in place, whether that's making it so that your hostile mobs can't jump out, or keeping your villagers in place in a trading hall so that they can't go around and cause ruckus. But after all, you want them to stay there for their full shift, so if all that takes is making the floor as sticky as a movie theater, I'm more than fine to sweeten the deal if it means that I can go make deals with these villagers. Do not dig straight down. Everyone's heard that. It's a classic Minecraft rule. But the truth is that it actually is much safer than you might think. And here's the best way to do it. Since instead of doing a 1x1 hole, if we just position ourselves in the intersection of two blocks like this, then if we dig them each one at a time, we'll still be standing on one of the blocks if the other one opens up into falling into lava. And at that point, if you don't recognize it and correct your mistake, you deserve to fall in the lava of the ravine. But as long as you keep that in mind, it could be pretty useful for getting yourself into some helpful stuff. Rivers can be a beautiful backdrop to your future builds, but while they look nice in the day, they can quickly turn problematic at night, and the drowned mobs make sure of that. So that means we need some way to light up our lake bed. And while things like glowstone or sea lanterns can definitely work, those are expensive to come by, especially if you need them in bulk. So instead, why don't we opt for this pickle pariah? No joke, 4 of these in one block give off more light than a torch, and since they're so easy to farm, you'll have plenty to solve your problem. A gas turret certainly has a nice ring to it, and as you can see from this user's design, it's a lot of fun too. Now, in order to create this homemade design, you're going to need to bring a ghast into the overworld. Then, after you trap that new ghast, we can flip a lever to move a piece of its trap wall up and down like so, and that'll let us choose how and when the ghast shoots a fireball. From there, we just need a mash click to punch it in the right direction, and we'll have ourselves an open invitation to wreak havoc on your friends. Now, how do you think these carpets are floating? I'll give you a hint, it's not string, but instead, this user found out that you can use glow lichen to do the trick. And with their design, we can shed some light on the build and maintain its style without using ugly support blocks. And hey, this might just offer an extra bit of subtle spawn proofing as well. So whether you stop at the patio umbrella or use this for another kind of magic carpet contraption, it's well worth a shot. If you have only 3 dirt blocks, you're rich, or at least richer than you might think. Since if you have 3 dirt blocks, it's actually possible to trade that up to an emerald. Now, the way that we do this in 1.19 is that we turn our dirt into mud using a water bottle, and then dry it out on a dripstone rack like such to get ourselves our very own clay blocks, which if we then break, we can trade with a stonemason to get ourselves an emerald. It's not exactly the fastest trade, but it's definitely possible, and this proves that even when you're dirt poor, you're still not as poor as you think you are. Deep slate is a tough block to get a lot of, since even with a haste 2 efficiency 5 pickaxe, you still can't instant mine it. But as this user points out, if we get ourselves a wither to do the job, then it actually becomes much easier. As you'll notice, the wither breaks the blocks around its head every time that it takes damage. So if you trap one of these in a tunnel contraption like so, then every time that we punch it, we're gonna get ourselves some more deep slate blocks like so. And since it does a 3x3 area, we can quickly make ourselves a tunnel tunnel or get ourselves some deep slate without even having to damage our pickaxe. If you're harvesting a bunch of trees, it's easy to build up something of an abundance of saplings. And at some point, it's more than we could feasibly replant. But before you start burning them, consider this. Since saplings age off of a random-based system, we could build something like this to use our saplings as a random redstone generator. And it's the closest we've got to the copper golem. Minecraft bells don't do much, and while you could use it for raids or ring that bell to get notified about all future uploads, thank you, by the way, that's about it. But luckily, it has a better use for your boats. See, when a dispenser places a boat against a bell, it is perfectly aligned for your ice boat highway, and now you don't have to worry about slipping off course. By this point, we all know it's important to stay on the piglin's good side, and while that's usually a problem gold can solve, that isn't as true while raiding bastions. So to get the loot without angering the pigmen, we'll need to get creative. See, since their behavior checks for any chests that are open or broken into in the proximity, we need to get the items out in some other way. But luckily, all we need is a hopper underneath to drain the items, and then we can break that to score our stuff, making it a must-have on your search for pig step. This pillager will never attack me or my friends, and the reason for that is a bow. Silly as it may seem, if you get the villager inside of a boat and then sit in the front, then it'll keep trying to shoot you with its crossbow until eventually the crossbow's durability runs out and that pillager is essentially pacified. I mean, he won't sound the friendliest, but he's not gonna hurt you either, giving you a cheap way to rehabilitate the raider. Granted, it'll take a lot of time for the durability to run down, but anger management's an ongoing process. If you want to be a pro at Minecraft, then you gotta be able to MLG clutch. But if your reaction time's like mine, then that's disconcerting. It's just not gonna happen. So a simpler option for us slowpokes is to use chorus fruit instead. Strangely enough, the random teleport feature is actually predictable, or at least predictable enough for us to use. The way it works, it will always teleport you to solid ground. So if you're in midair off of Shulker's levitation effect, then you can just chomp on one of these and be teleported right back to safety. And look, I'm not gonna lie, it maybe doesn't look as cool as a water bucket save, but being able to survive a deadly fall, I think that's good enough for me. If you don't have a water bucket, or you're in the nether and want to try something new, weaving vines are the best answer. See, with these, we can hang one off of the roof and then bone meal it to reach the bottom. And that not only gives us a way to reach the base of the cave safely, but it also offers easy access back to the top. And that kind of dual purpose can be a real lifesaver. You'll never miss another ender pearl after using this simple trick. See, ender pearls are projectiles, that much is obvious. But what you might not know is that ender pearls share the same projectile data as a snowball, meaning that just for the price of some snow stuff, we can find out exactly the trajectory that our ender pearl is gonna land at. And from there, we don't have to worry about another misclick, which makes sure that you're not gonna die in the end or the nether next time that you throw one of these. Which is good, because I think we all can agree death doesn't come very cheap. So for the price of a snowball, I'll take that to avoid it. This may look like a doormat, and it is, but it also doubles as an effective way of keeping mobs out of your base. No joke, by just having this simple carpet laid out like so, we prevent most mobs from walking through too tall walkways. And since their pathfinding doesn't think that they can make it through, we can use this to keep certain mobs out or in a specific area that we want. And plus, having a couple of carpet pieces laying on your floor is a lot less distracting than having a fence or a guarded gate, meaning this works for both the form and the function. It's tough to make Minecraft feel scary. I mean, this is what the world looks like. What would you expect? But to add that vicious flair to your nether base, these nether warp blocks can really sell the image. Taken after this user, we use the blocks for something of a blood canal to fill out our altar room. And if anything, it lets us finally have a use for nether warp blocks since we can't uncraft them in a nether wart. And when they're this easy to come by in a crimson forest, I think that's a win-win. Normally, you can't smelt nether stem blocks or planks, but with some crafting, we can break that rule. By converting nether stem blocks into planks, then the planks into sticks, and then finally our sticks into ladders, we can use them in our furnace for fuel. And while I don't know why you'd use this over the literal lakes of lava that you have available, if you're in the nether without a bucket, it is an option. In life, you got a few essential pairings: the sun and the moon, peanut butter and jelly, and if you ask Bugs Bunny, rabbits and carrots. The way that rabbits work in Minecraft is that they'll try to come near you when you're holding a carrot, which means that with a system like this, you can actually build a rabbit carrot detector for secret entrances. It makes for an extremely weird concept, but if you're willing to carry around a couple extra carrots, those might come in handy if you forget your keys inside the base once again. I guess the only ones who don't benefit here are actually the rabbits, because after all that hard work, they're still not going to be able to get the carrot. Horses aren't that popular for travel, which is fair because they're quickly outclassed late game, but they might still have one thing going for them. See, in the Bedrock version, we're able to place blocks under us in a speed bridge like so. But what's better still is that this even works on horseback, meaning with the right speed, we can even speed bridge on a horse, which is wild to see. And even if it isn't as practical as an Elytra boost, I've got to admit that this is a lot of fun to mess around with. So if you're looking to bring your items across the gorge, maybe just grab a pack mule and do the trek like so. Nobody likes waiting. Whether it's waiting in line, waiting for files to download, or a video to buffer, nobody likes their time wasted, which largely makes nether portals a pain to deal with. In survival mode, not only do you have to wait for the whole sickness animation to play out, but then you've also got to let an entire other dimension load on the other side. It's not exactly speedy, to say the least. But if you got some items, we might be able to cut that down. You see, by using Nether Portal chunk loading, all it takes is throwing an item to the other side, and then all of a sudden, it'll do all of the loading for you. So going forward, maybe take the time to hit the Q key. Might just save you some down the road. Here's how to make your spyglass even better. Since the way that the spyglass works, it actually modifies your existing FOV. So while we could use our regular FOV and have it zoom in this much, if we lower that FOV to the bottom at 30, then you'll notice when we use the spyglass, it zooms in even closer. And then if you've got an additional zoom mod on top of that, you can really use this trick to get up close and personal, and then immediately switch off the lower FOV, because playing the rest of the game this way is miserable. In Minecraft, there's knockback, knockback 2, and then the kind of knockback that launches you 1100 blocks away. Thanks to the community's discovery, it turns out that by stunning a Ravager in a build like this, and then sitting on a minecart above, we can get launched hundreds of blocks away from the location. And if you're looking to extend that airtime, maybe bring in a Elytra as well for an even greater liftoff. Now, when you see a bin full of nearly broken golden swords, it doesn't exactly look like a treasure chest. And usually we dump these gold farm rejects into something of a trash chute. But instead, why not take this overflow and then funnel it into a super smelter? Do that and your gold farm will get an extra bonus on profits, which is always good in my book. Snow golems melt in the desert. That's not much of a surprise. Even Frosty the Snowman could have told you that. But what you might be surprised to know is that if you use a fire resistance potion, that'll allow your snow golems to survive in hot climates. And yes, that even includes the nether, as silly as it might seem. So if you have a couple of these lying around after a piglin bartering, you could set up a couple of snow golems, splash them with this, and use those to help you eviscerate through that blaze spawner. Just get ready for the rude awakening when the potion effect wears off, and you're left with nothing more than a pile of snowballs in front of you. I guess nothing good ever lasts, huh? Building a timer with redstone is possible, but costly. But this solves that, since by using even less redstone and even more of a big brain play, we instead use cobwebs and an item to fall slowly through the cobwebs and then drop onto the pressure plate. And there you go. By the time it reaches the bottom, you'll have roughly a minute and 10 seconds passed. So considering that other 1-minute timers look like this, I think it's more than worth it to give this one a shot, especially when it's this simple to set up. Alright, pop quiz. What do you do after accidentally hitting a zombie piglin? Well, the solution's simpler than you might think, since all we gotta do is take after this user on Reddit and dig out 2 blocks into the ground and then build 2 blocks up so that we're standing safe. And from there, if we hold crouch and move back over the hole, then at that point, all the zombie piglins are just gonna run into that confined space. And once we got them crammed in there like sardines, all we have to do is drop 2 pieces of gravel on top of them and they'll all suffocate down there in the pit, making this the simplest way to get off their bad side. Though keep in mind that if you do this, you might run the risk of them spawning zombies as reinforcements. But as long as you're stayed up on their tower, you'll be able to easily dispatch them too, proving that this mistake was as easy to solve as it was to make. With this one-way glass, we can see in and the criminals can't see out. Let me explain. Without using any mods, all we need are some tinted glass blocks to help us get the effect. And if you place a wall of tinted glass on a build like so, all we need to do is make sure that one side has enough light and the other one is completely dark. That way, when you stand on one side of the glass, you're only going to see that darkness, while on the other, you can see perfectly through as planned. With just a lever and some redstone dust, we're able to lag the game so much that we can basically freeze time. Since with the way that Mojang's coded redstone dust, it gets pretty laggy when you connect a bunch of these up to a lever. And then by using something like the fast right-click feature in a mod like Tweakaroo, we can flip that same lever on and off until eventually the redstone's updating so much that we basically slowed time down to a crawl. And then that's where the fun begins, since one of the easiest tricks to pull off with this is to break bedrock. Or if you wanted to, you could use this to freeze time on a multiplayer server, build an entire structure, and then when time switches back to normal, your friend will have no idea where that came from. But let me warn that in that case, you don't want to span the lever for too long, since doing it for longer than 60 seconds might just trigger Minecraft's watchdog to terminate the server. But as long as you freeze time in smaller increments, they'll be none the wiser. Now, how is this lamp powered? Well, the answer is redstone, but probably not how you'd expect it. See, this user discovered that by placing down item frames and design maps like so, they could hide the redstone underneath. So if you have a cobblestone block below, you can cap it off with its own design, or maybe even diamonds to show off. And hey, it'll even work for hiding minecart rails like so, letting us make a secret roller coaster to get around. This composter doesn't look like much, but it's actually my base. Don't believe me? Here, I'll show you. If we just step inside and throw an item right into place, a hidden hopper minecart will trigger and cause this redstone machine to push us right into place. And bam, hidden entrance. And while it's hard to notice what's happening from above, this Reddit user's post makes the mechanics a lot more obvious. Just make sure you place this in a village where it makes sense for there to be a composter. Otherwise, this hidden base could just stick out like a sore thumb. For any fans of The Shining, I'm sure you're well aware of the Here's Johnny Easter egg in Minecraft. That is, if you name a Vindicator Johnny, then it's going to go absolutely insane against all the other mobs around it. And while this is a fun little reference, we can actually use it for way more than that. You see, by putting this Vindicator's aggression into a mob farm, we can actually have it auto-kill the different mobs that we breed. This does make for a pretty brutal system, but the results are hard to argue with. And as long as you yourself manage to keep a respectable distance between Johnny, he's gonna go right to his work and leave you be. Even with the new glow lichen on the walls, lighting up these caves is still a mega task. So why don't we try night vision potions instead? Though that's got its own issue. Potions don't stack, so they're gonna take a lot of room. So instead of sacrificing storage for bottles, why don't we just use night vision arrows instead? After you craft a chunk of these, you can simply hit yourself with a dose and get right back to exploring. Sure, it's a bit more painful, but that's a small price to pay for seeing in the dark. And a stack will give you plenty of time to do that. If you've only got yourself one bucket of water, but you still need an infinite water source, just wait for nighttime. Since if you kill a skeleton and get some bone meal, then you can use that to create seagrass, which if you grow seagrass inside of flowing water, it'll turn that into a full water source block. So whether you're playing in a desert on a skyblock island, or you just don't want to craft another bucket, a bit of bone meal will solve your problem just the same. Don't underestimate tipped arrows, since by just hitting yourself with one of these slow falling arrows, that'll give you just the right amount of slow falling effect that when we partner with a Riptide 3 Trident, we can use this to launch ourselves sky high. And the reason we use an arrow instead of a potion is so that when we reach the top of our ascent, we aren't still gonna have the slow falling effect, because using slow falling with an elytra is just sad. And especially with how easy it is to get tipped arrows in Bedrock Edition, I think there's more than enough of a reason to try this out in your world. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?